Ultimately, Parabrahman is an individual that can only be achieved by Parabhakti. That means the highest form of bhakti, where all your ego is completely destroyed and you cannot think of anything else except the God. So that is what the Mirabai and Narsi Mehta and all will teach. That Parabhakti is the ultimate way to reach the final state of the Godhead without losing your own identity, but appearing to lose your own identity. So essentially, you are joining God in the bliss without being merged into the or disappearing into the bliss. That will be called Parabhakti. And that is the idea of Parabrahman. So that God exists not as Nirgun Brahman, but as a Sagun Brahman who controls everything, including Brahman, and including Nirgun Brahman, including Sagun Brahman, and including you and me and the universe that we experience. So, depending upon what school you belong to, you can use Narayan or Shiva or Ganpati, whatever, Vishnu, whatever name you want to give. But our school will emphasize Krishna. And it will say all the other people, like all the other gods, are essentially cabinet members of Krishna. So praying to them essentially is just a way, a conduit to reach the ultimate reality, which is Lord Krishna. All right, let's move on. I think I covered this idea. Let's move on. Okay, Ramakrishna Sasam, what he's trying to do is this now. He's trying to reconcile the idea of Nirgun Brahman and Sagun Brahman, trying to say that both of them are not necessarily contradictory, they are complementary in nature. He says something like this: the Vijnani sees the reality which is Nirgun is also Sagun. A man cannot live on the roof of the house for a long time. He comes down again. Those who realize Brahman in Samadhi, come down and also find that Brahman has become the universe and the living being. What is the difference between him and Shankara is this? Shankara will say that roof is the ultimate reality, and the staircase and the floor below is nothing more than an illusion. What Ramakrishna is saying is that, yes, it is true that you reach the top of the roof, which is Gnana, but Vijnana is one that realizes that everything that you traveled and you lived was also God. So that is Vijnana. So for Shankaracharya, Gnana is basically saying understanding the scripture, and Vijnana means realizing the scriptures as a Gnan Marg is the Vijnana. And what Ramakrishna is saying different. He says Gnana is understanding the scripture and understanding theoretical aspect. But Vijnana is not only understanding in the aspect, but realizing that the universe is also God. So he goes a step forward to try to reconcile viewpoint of bhakti as well as viewpoint of Gnan. Did I make sense?
No.
No. All right. All right. Well, just think about it. Just think about it. Since you and I live in this world, and just think about that, the ultimate Nirgun Brahman is the top of the roof. You climb the staircase, you reach the roof. So what you learn by Gnana, according to Shankaracharya, is that illusion. We are living in the illusion that the reality is on the roof. We reach the roof and realize the Nirgun Brahman. So once you reach the roof, you realize that everything that we were experiencing was just like a dream. This is the final reality of the roof. Now Vijnani will say something different. He will say is that he will come down from the roof to the same place he was, and he will say everything that I experienced on the roof is the same thing that I am experiencing here. So the God has manifested himself as this universe, which is the Vaishnavite concept. Vaishnavite concept says is that the world and you and me are not real, not illusion. They are real. They are Leela of God. Shankaracharya will say, you and I, as a separate individual, and the universe as an entity, is nothing more than illusion. There is only one reality called Nirgun Brahman. Everything else is illusion. And Vaishnavite school will say, no, that's not true. The universe that we experience is the Leela of God. So it is also real. It is a different set of reality. So Vijnana Vedanta of RMK essentially combines both the ideas into one, trying to reconcile both diametrically opposite viewpoints.
Is that also called Prakriti?
Yes, Prakriti is Maya. It's basically nature. So RMK will say Prakriti and is the manifestation of God itself.
Oh,
Prakriti is not an illusion. It is not Maya. Maya has two components. Prakriti has two components. Basically, one that hides the reality and creates a reality that does not exist in our mind. What Vedanta of Vaishnavite school say, it hides the reality, but it is not an illusion that you are seeing. It is actually what it is. So something like this, think about it. Reality never appears, but appearance is not reality per se. Am I making sense? Absolute reality never appears to you and me, but what appears is never complete reality. So essentially it is a partial reality that we are experiencing.
Is there any example?
Example, I'm trying to think of an example. I cannot think of.
But that is, Rajan bhai, that is because of the limitations we have. Is we cannot experience the whole reality, but what we are experiencing is not the whole reality. It's something, there is a lot more to it which we are not able to understand. And as you get more gnan, or more, if you get higher up and up and up in the studies, then you may be able to get it.
That is right. Like that's exactly what he's making a point. Janaben.
આ નથી સમજણ પડતી. આ પેલા સમજીએ પછી ઉપર આવીએ ને ગ્રુપ સુધી.
એ વાત સાચી બેન.
Okay, just think about આપણે અગાસી પર જઈએ.
Yeah.
જે દાદરા છે.
બરાબર.
દાદરા સિમેન્ટ કોન્ક્રીટ ના છે. અગાસી પણ સિમેન્ટ કોન્ક્રીટ ની છે. Okay. તમે when you are down at the bottom, you think that Agassi is the ultimate reality. You reach there, and when you are thinking up there in the Agassi, દાદરા પણ આ જ વસ્તુ ના હતા. ઈંટ જ હતી કે સિમેન્ટ જ હતો. So why is it that this is illusion? It is not.
Sorry. Correct કરતા.
Oh yeah, તમે
ચાલી ગયું છે.
જતું રહ્યું છે.
Yeah, slide correct કરે છે. તું બોલ.
Okay, so basically the point is making is that the reality that we experience day in day out is the same reality or partial manifestation of the ultimate reality. It is not an illusion. In the sense, I am looking at myself in the mirror, and that is, I know it is an image, right? So it is an illusion of me. What Vaishnavite school will say, no, God actually has manifested himself as you and me and the universe. So God resides in the universe itself, and it is not an illusion. Or think about it, if you have a flower and you have a like a diamond. If you put a flower behind the diamond, and if you're looking from the other side, the diamond will look green or red or blue or whatever the color of the flower is, right? So if you have a diamond, some kind of thing that is transparent, and there is something behind it, you will perceive the diamond as its own color, whatever the color of that flower is. And you remove the flower, the color, the sparkling white color of the diamond will appear. So the point is that the flower is also real, the diamond is real. What we experience is a mixed reality. Because diamond is being viewed, the flower is being viewed through the diamond. So the diamond appears to be blue or green or red, whatever the color it may be. So once you realize that the flower and the diamond are separate reality, but they are also God, your illusion goes away. I hope I made sense.
આ ત્રણ વસ્તુ શોધવાની જરા અઘરી એટલે
Well, I'll think about an example. Let's move on to the next slide, and if something comes up my mind, I'll mention that. Some of the points he's making is about same thing of Ramakrishna is saying, a Gnani dismisses the universe as a framework of illusion. And the word he's using is dokatati. So basically, Gnani thinks this world is a universe, the world and the universe is an illusion. A Vijnani embraces the universe as a Majar Koti, mansion of mirth. So what he is saying is this, a Gnani will realize is that the movie he is watching is make-believe movie. So once I am able to get off that movie, I'm going to see the screen, and that's all I care. A Vijnani will know that the screen is there, but he will also enjoy the movie. It's a tragedy or comedy or whatever that may be. So he gets involved in that movie, knowing fully well is that movie is just make believe that is manifesting on the screen of the Brahman. But he will enjoy as if he is part of that movie. So he will be feeling the same kind of emotion that we get to see, we get to experience when we see the movie. A Vijnani will essentially say, well, this is all make believe. So there is no need for you to get involved in this thing.
So
I hope I made sense.
So Rajan Bhai, what is the best thing, to be Gnani or Vijnani?
Well, from the point of reconciliation, from the point of view of RMK and Vivekanand and many others, I think being a Vijnani is more important because it cuts the dogma of whether you believe in God with the form or you believe in the God without the form. A Vijnani will accept the reality. Depending upon, it will make a point is that depending upon your thought process, you can embrace either of the two and you still can reach the ultimate goal. So a Vijnani is more broad-minded, more inclusive, and more pluralistic. A Gnani is somewhat exclusivistic in the sense it excludes the people, or at least he puts down the people who view Sagun Brahman as an inferior way of looking things. Did I answer the question?
So
Yes.
Gnani never accept the bhakti.
He will say, Gnani will doesn't accept, but he will say bhakti is as long as you believe this world is real. This is fine. But ultimately, what you are reaching is a level of high school graduation. If you really want to know, you will need to go do PhD in Gnana Marga. So Gnani will say bhakti is a SSC exam, call it that way. And PhD is the Gnan Marga.
But Vijnani will consider
Vijnani will say, depending upon your level of knowledge, you can reach either of that. And once you reach PhD, you will also know is that what you believed in earlier was not necessarily is untrue. It was true as well from that perspective where you were looking at from. So he's more open-minded in the sense is that he accepts all the view as potentially right, depending upon your perspective.
એટલે આપણે બધા વૈજ્ઞાનિક કહીએ કારણ કે આપણે બધું માનીએ.
But if you ask Madhubhai, by the way, Dinesh Bhai, he will not agree.
Yeah, I was about to say that this is different than what Bhau thinks.
Right. Most of the classical Advaita Vedantists will not agree to this. And what I'm trying to say is that many of the modern thinkers, especially Ramakrishna for sure, Vivekananda, even Gandhiji in his writing I think I had sent it to you for a long time ago, maybe a couple of months back. Gandhiji writes a sentence, and I'm trying to paraphrase now. I am a Advaitin per se, but I also believe in Vaishnavism. And then the next sentence he says something like this. He says, yes, if the world is untrue because, world is changing, so in that respect is untrue. But there is something constant, so in that respect is true as well.
Yeah,
so what Gandhiji said is that both idea of Advait and Vaishnavite school are essentially complementary in nature. That is what Gandhiji wrote. And obviously he was influenced by what Vivekananda and RMK and all those guys had said. And he wasn't necessarily a theological scholar. He was viewing from his perspective. And Vivekananda at times appeared to say is that he appears to kind of put a hierarchical structure of a Gnan is the ultimate. But at the same time, he also says that all paths are equally valid. Shankaracharya will say only final path is Gnan Marg. Rest of them are preparatory. Vivekananda and RMK and Gandhiji and Aurobindo will say, no, that's not true. All paths by themselves are equal. So if you want it, you can use any one of them or a combination of all of them, and you will be fine.
Yeah, Shankaracharya and the Advaiti, only Advaiti, they are talking about people who, not average people like us, because we need lot more sticks and lot more
support. Yeah.
Support જોઈએ. Now that is not in this Advait thing, because you don't have anything. This is it, believe it. This is it, believe it. That's it.
Right.
We need that support, and that is provided by Vaishnavites or whatever other phases that you believe in. But that's what's provided by the other religion, where you they are all Hinduism, but the other Vaishnavites, there are things, there are do's and don'ts which will eventually get you up there. But for guys and gals like us, if you are trying to go straight Vedantic, it's going to be very difficult, frustrating, and you would not know where you are, and you would be frustrated. And that's why Gandhiji said, "Ke na bhai, mare to મને જે સમજ પડે પહેલા કરવા દે, પછી આગળની વાત છે."
Precisely the point. And I think that is what Krishna is saying to Arjun in Gita. Saying that if you want Gnan Marg, it is fine. Then he goes on to say, for average person, Bhakti Marg with for the prayer and bhakti of the entity with the form is lot easier.
Yes, absolutely.
That is what so Gita is trying to reconcile abstract ideas of Upanishad without saying that they are not superior. They basically, he says it is equally good. All of them are equally good. That is what Gita is trying to say. So if you listen to Krishna in different chapters, he will keep on circulating between Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. And at times appear to be contradicting from the previous version. But what he is trying to say is this, is that depending upon your makeup, you can use any one of them.
Right.
And I think Vaishnavite school will be more dogmatic about Bhakti Marg as the final way. Advaitic school, Shankaracharya will be more dogmatic about other way. And in our situation, most of the scholars have diverged from one extreme to the other extreme. Madhusudan Saraswati used both versions. He was a classical Advaita scholar, similar to what Shankaracharya was, but he also wrote a lot of literature on Bhakti and Krishna. So he was willing, but that's 800 years from Shankara. So all the Bhakti schools were dominant schools in India at that time. So from 800 to 1500, it became more Bhakti-oriented school. Ramanujacharya and Madhavacharya and Vallabhacharya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So what 16th century, when he came on, he was trying to reconcile his original idea of Shankaracharya and also trying to reconcile the ideas of all the other acharyas to make it together. So Madhusudan Saraswati essentially tried to summarize in a way without offending the other side.
But that is one of the reasons, like Chinmaya Mission and things like that, even though they teach you Vedantic, but everywhere they have temple, they have murti puja, they have all, because it's very difficult to take people from, તમને પહેલે બાળપોથી સીધા તમને PhD ના ક્લાસમાં બેસાડી દો, તો teacher will be frustrated as well as student will be frustrated.
And that's exactly right. So it is like call it that, if you want to call it, it's a high level university course and most people are studying in high school.
Right, exactly. But that's why even as I'm saying, આપણે પેલું સાઉથમાં ક્યાં છે વિવેકાનંદનું ખાલી કે એના તમે પ્રેયર રૂમમાં જાઓ તો there is only home, there is no other picture, this is what you focus on.
Right.
You
So
go across the ocean and then
Kanyakumari.
yeah, Kanyakumari.
Right.
So there is nothing else, there is no murti there, but that's what he has reached up to the PhD level, and that's what he's expecting. But guys like you and I, we need murti. Without murti, we will be lost.
That is exactly right. And that is what Vaishnava school will emphasize, is that that's the way to go forward. What Vaishnava school will do is will say, it is not necessary that Nirgun Brahman is superior to Sagun Brahman. Nirgun Brahman is aspect of Sagun Brahman. That's the difference. So what I mean, Vaishnava, Vallabhacharya said something like this, that the Nirgun Brahman came from Lord Krishna's charan, from his feet. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said is that Nirgun Brahman is the peripheral brilliance of Lord Krishna.
Krishna, yes.
So what, basically looking at a different way. So for both Vaishnava school, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Vallabhacharya, Nirgun Brahman is an aspect of Krishna himself.
The other way of thinking is, તમે જો આ બધા ભગવાનના ફોટા જોયો તો around his neck, I mean ગોળ મોટું ચક્ર, not ચક્ર but આપણે આભાસ જેવું લાગે કે there is some light beyond his head, and that's what
glow light.
Right.
And that's what Nirgun Brahman is. That's that glow.
That is what Vaishnava school will say. Yeah, you're right. Essentially using Lord Krishna as the ultimate reality, from which Nirgun Brahman sort of appears to be coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And we are the product of Krishna or Vishnu or Shiva or whoever you believe it to be.
Right.
Yeah. Like, let's just try and see if we can do one or two slides before we stop. And I think, if you want me to finish this next week, I'm fine. If you want to just go straight to Vallabhacharya and Bhagavad and, Vaishnava.
Finish karo yaar, finish kari do.
Okay, all right. I think this is the same thing that I am saying with Ramakrishna, is basically trying to reconcile both viewpoints in a colloquial manner. He wasn't a scholar, he was a mystic. So what he often said was like in the way a common person can understand, not in the language of an academic scholar. So, but he basically says the same thing over and over again. And I just quoted a few of them. You can read it, and it basically says the same thing. Let's move on. Okay, so this is the perspective summarized, call it that way. Vijnana Vedanta is a resolutely non-sectarian philosophy that harmonizes various apparently conflicting religious faith and philosophies and spiritual discipline. So essentially he's trying to combine together. From the spiritual standpoint of Vijnana, God is both personal and impersonal, both with and without form, both immanent in the universe and beyond it. So what he's saying is that both sides are right. No need to keep on arguing endlessly. That is what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see what's the next one. Okay, so this is the one that I was referring to. Call it three sides that you can see. Each one is a different color. And if you look at the other side, probably it's a reversal of that. And you think about this Mobius formation is many more folds, and each one has many more colors. What you are seeing is only partial manifestation of the absolute reality. That is the Mobius formation. So what he is trying to say is this, is that absolute reality is unfathomable. All right. Let's see if we can finish. Can we just slide ahead, Boucher? Integral Vedanta of Ramakrishna is basically same thing that I already told you. So difference between Nitya and Lila. Lila. Vaishnavite school, apadi school che, Vallabhacharya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will say, this world is a Lila of God. And Shankaracharya will say, no, this world is an illusion coming from Nirgun Brahman. So that is the difference. That Lila means essentially it is real, and you actually enjoy or feel the sadness or whatever that is. So you experience in reality. It is not an illusory aspect. That is what basically difference is. Let's move on.
જાનાબેન પૂછે છે તમે?
Okay, I think I am concluding this part.
જાનાબેન
Oh, Janaben, yeah. કરો છો ને, okay.
ના જવા દો.
Huh?
ના ના પૂછતી નથી કઈ.
Okay, so Samadhi, Gnani realizes the non-dual reality of Nirgun Brahman in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Vijnani returns from Nirvikalpa Samadhi and attains a richer, world-affirming, non-dualistic realization that God has become everything. So essentially what he's trying to see is Nirvikalpa Samadhi is the ultimate state of realization of absolute. What he's saying is that from that state, a realized sage will come back to this universe and experience the God as he experienced the Nirvikal Samadhi in this universe itself. So he will see this universe as nothing but the manifestation of that God that he saw.
So he come back.
He comes back, right. That's the difference, yeah.
તો આ બધા પંડિતો ને બધા મહારાજો બધા થઈ ગયા that stage they reached and they come back.
Yep, that is the idea. An avatar, a full avatar, will be able to come back in both ways, transcend one way and come back on the other side. So he knows. A partial avatar, like many of these major saints, will have experienced it, but they don't acquire the power of an avatar. That's the difference. Partial avatar. I mean, in the next lecture, I'm going to talk about avatar and Vaishnavism. So a full avatar like Krishna not only is able to experience both the world outside and the world inside, but he is able to control and manifest itself. And partial avatar is the one that experiences the transcendental aspect of God, but cannot change. He doesn't have the power of Godhead. That is the difference. So that is called partial avatar. All right. Okay. But I think this is the next one now. Dinesh bhai, now this part that comes next one is explaining reality, Maya and Mithya from both sides, the Vaishnavite school as well as Janaven.
મારે આપણે આ ગુરુવારે જે લેક્ચર આપણે સાંભળેલું ને તમે હતા મને લાગે છે.
Yeah.
એમાં મેં એક વસ્તુ સાંભળી હતી કે જે લેક ઓફ નોલેજ હોય તો એ પ્યોર ના કહેવાય એવું મારી અન્ડરસ્ટેન્ડિંગ, મારી અનિલની અન્ડરસ્ટેન્ડિંગ હતી. એટલે what kind of knowledge ની વાત કરતા હતા એ?
Knowledge about the Atman, not knowledge about the world. Knowledge about the self, the subject, not the object.
Yeah, પણ એનો મીનિંગ એમ કે અમારે જે લેક ઓફ નોલેજ હોય જેને એ ઇમ્પ્યોર હોય, પ્યોર નથી, એવું કેમ માની લેવાય?
ના, એટલે idea is basically when we learn about things, object, we read, retain, and reproduce. But we do not realize what we realize is the self. Idea is basically that you understand. Sravana Manan Nidhyasana is the 3 words. Okay. Realization is the ultimate. Not only that you can recite what was said, but you realize within you what you learned from the teaching. So the knowledge,
Introspection.
call introspection if you want to call that.
Okay.
Introspection is the mind looking within the mind. But a little bit further down, realizing that mind itself is outside me.
Okay.
So
Yes.
realization of the Atman and realizing that all those things that I'm experiencing is not me.
Okay.
So knowledge, Maya is basically, call it that way, ignorance is basically centered on the jiva, like me and you. Maya is the ultimate net which hides the reality. But so there are knowledge is twofold. One is understanding that my ignorance is shared, but the Maya aspect of God is still not pierced through until the grace of God comes through. At least from Bhakti school. Okay, so next week, shall we go with this or shall I go to Vaishnavism, Bhagavad, Avatar and those kind of things?
બધાનો શું અભિપ્રાય છે?
I tell you what, these slides are, I have sent slides to all of you. Do me a favor, look it over. If you want me to continue with this, I will do so. If you want to just read it yourself and move on to the next version, let me know within like 2-3 days. Then I'll finish most of the slides for the next one. And I'll just rearrange it properly and send it before the next lecture if we go with that one.
Okay.
Sounds okay?
Yep. That sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
જય
Thank
શ્રી
you.
કૃષ્ણ બધાને.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Let's do the closing prayer. We always forget to
Yeah,
do.
Okay, let's go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sarve bhavantu sukhinah. Sarve santu niramayah. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. Kaschit vibhav bhavet.
ઓમ શાંતિ.
શાંતિ.
Shanti.
જાનાબેન કાલે છે ને